Dearest Void, the savages of Gaza known as Hamas are still holding hostage two dead bodies of civilians that they have murdered, even though they long ago were supposed to release them, all according to the ceasefire. And now they've sent Israel remains, and after checking, the coroner says the remains are that of some Gazan person and have nothing to do with us. Again, that's not the first time they've done that. Even when they were supposed to give us back the bodies of the Bibas family, the mother Shiri with her baby and toddler that they kidnapped and murdered horribly as freedom fighters do, they first gave us the body of some Gazan woman which they probably murdered themselves. Only after protest they gave us Shiri back. And this is the savagery we have to deal with. But the amazing thing is how much lying is just part of Palestinian culture. That's why we call it Pallywood. And they've been doing it since their inception in 1967, basically. Now, most of it is seriously ridiculous. You don't need to have more than 2 brain cells to realize they're lying. But we are in the era of TikTok trends and AI videos and an entire generation in the West of kids that their last brain cell committed suicide because it couldn't take the loneliness anymore. Also, of course, antisemitism is baked into Western culture. So any blood libel of any kind is immediately believed and adopted by some parts of the Western world. And the stories are so fucking stupid. For example, recently there was an incident where 2 Hamas terrorists broke the ceasefire agreement again and crossed the yellow line approaching the soldiers. So they were happily sent to their 72. Of course, the Hamas Ministry of Health, which is another fiction. A terror organization doesn't have a Ministry of Health, and Hamas uses hospitals as military outposts, and they even murdered some hostages in them. So bitch please, let's call it what it really is. The Hamas arm of propaganda aimed at stupid anti-Semites in collaboration with Western traitors, meaning mainstream media. And they said that the 2 terrorists were actually children. It's amazing how every Hamas terrorist becomes a child in death. We should definitely investigate that. Maybe they found a fountain of youth. And then came the sugar on the cream. The fake kid's fake uncle told Reuters that what the kids were doing was looking for firewood for their wheelchair-bounded father. Excuse me. That's always like the story with the Arab colonialists in Judea. Every time it's evil Jews killed kids while they were getting warm milk for the sickly mother who was busy saving puppies. It always sounds like something out of a grim fairy tale, and those anti-Semitic morons in the West are like, yep, sounds legit. So here's a photo of the yellow line, the area where the kids were looking for firewood. Now, the keen-eyed amongst you might notice that this looks a lot like a fucking desert. Because it is. So you might ask yourself, what kind of an idiot child looks for firewood in the middle of the desert? And if you ask this question, congratulations! You are not a stupid and gullible anti-Semite. And you have 2 brain cells that can actually communicate. I know it's not something to be proud of in normal circumstances, but it is in the current world we live in. And that's how it always works, because the Arab colonialists in Judea have become masters of fooling idiots and taking advantage of a big portion of the West who are willingly ignorant. Look at the next guy, for example. I mentioned in another video the incident in which Hamas terrorists pretended to surrender in the Arab colony of Jenin, and then they made a sudden move that the IDF soldiers thought was them grabbing a weapon, and they fired. And the Western anti-Semite, one John Morris from YouTube, not from the company YouTube, from the YouTube comment section I mean, immediately responded that this happened in Jenin, so there's no Hamas and no weapons. This is how fucking stupid and ignorant these vacant heads are. Jenin, the Arab colony of Jenin in Judea, is one of the most brutal and Hamas-infested places in all of Judea and Samaria. It is known as the capital of terror, and even the so-called Palestinian Authority had a mini civil war with them because Hamas terrorists were trying to remove them by force, just like they did in Gaza. So you see the difference between what John Morris thinks reality is and what reality is. Of course, when I told him all of that and gave him links to prove that, he kept silent. Didn't you, John Morris? None of those idiots would ever admit a mistake because, first of all, they belong to that brand that is too stupid to be self-aware. They need to believe that they're actually smart. And because they're stupid, they don't realize that admitting you made a mistake and correcting course is being smart. So they just stay silent, or in other cases, they attack you personally when they are caught mistaken, which is all of the time. And second, John Morris believes that Jews are evil. He needs the Palestinian scam to be true. He needs the Arab colonialists in Judea to be natives, even though they are the invaders. And for them to be a peaceful, unarmed freedom fighters, even though they are baby murdering Islamists with a Nazi ideology and an actual, literal admiration to Hitler. And admitting that these were Hamas terrorists gunned down after they tried to fool IDF soldiers just doesn't serve that narrative. So John Morris remains silent, even though before proven wrong, he had so much to say. Now, in other news in the world of Palestinian bullshit, have you noticed that genocide is completely different this year? I mean, I guess they got a new flavor for it now. See, a genocide used to look like this for us, or like this for the Armenians. You basically die and have little time for anything else. But somehow, the Arab colonialists managed to have a 50-couple mass wedding during a genocide. Look at that. Look at all the starvation and the genocide. Wow. These people feel so unsafe. Oh my God. Remember when there was a 50-couple wedding in Auschwitz and everybody was wearing the suits and looked well-groomed and well-fed? No, that's right, because that was an actual genocide, not a made-up blood libel. By the way, according to reports, it was funded by aid from the UAE. Aid that all Western vacant-head anti-Semites and the people of Pallywood say is completely blocked by Israel because it's genocide. And yet somehow these people were able to put aside the genocide, get aid, and get married, dressed in their finest. Remarkable how these things can happen, right? By the way, I promise you that there are vacant heads watching this right now and going, but it is genocide, Jews are evil, I've been told. They always get upset when reality doesn't match the idiocy that was placed in the tiny void that they call a brain. And here's another thing that is happening mid-genocide, and really shouldn't, regardless of anything, because it's not supposed to happen until the savages have returned all the bodies of the civilians they've murdered. So I'm kind of pissed off at the Netanyahu government about that one. But the El Shifa hospital has been completely rebuilt. This footage was released by the Arab colonialists in colonized Gaza on their own social media. Look at all the materials and nice walls they got during the genocide. By the way, look how everybody looks starving like skeletons because it's genocide. Also, look at all the office equipment and the new wood desks that they got during the genocide. Look at the food they celebrate with during the genocide. Remember when Jews renovated the sheds in Auschwitz and they all got new furniture and celebrated with food? No? Alright, because that was an actual genocide. And this is just Arab colonialists spreading blood libel and anti-Semitic Westerners adopting it because they're too stupid to know any better. And that's without even mentioning the undisputed fact that during 2024, mid-genocide, the Israeli government paused the war to work with the UN to vaccinate the population. Remember when the Nazis vaccinated the population in Auschwitz? No, because they didn't. What they did was medical experiments on the Jews, including children, because that was a real genocide. So please, spread this video far and wide. Cut it into pieces and put it on TikTok. I am too old for TikTok myself, but if you guys have the stomach for it, go for it. Make the morons know that we know that they are morons, and that we know that they are evil. And give them this message. It is very easy to see that the genocide blood libel is blood libel. The evidence is all around you. Hell, they've been pushing this nonsense since 2007. It just took them 20 years to find people stupid and twisted enough to adopt it. When the wheels turn, and you will have to answer for your hate crimes, for pushing it and supporting it and inciting hate against us like the old anti-Semites did with the Jews are poisoning the wells and they are using Christian blood in the food, all that blood libel from the Middle Ages. Just know that you will not be able to say that you didn't know. And you will pay the price for your crimes. Your kind always does in the end. Just a matter of time.